Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Glory and I'm a third-year architecture student studying at the Bartlett School of Architecture. And today I thought it'd be really interesting to go through some of my year 2 work because it was quite a journey. Even though it was during COVID times and things were really difficult, I still really enjoyed my time during second year because of my amazing unit and my amazing tutors. And I produced some, I guess, interesting work that I thought it would be nice for us to look back on because I just entered third year. So I don't think I will be cringing as hard, but maybe a few years later I will probably cringe at it. But let's take this time when I'm not cringing at it to go through my work. Hopefully this will be interesting for you to watch if you're thinking about studying here at the Bartlett and want to know how it's like. I'll be going through the portfolio, sharing some of my experience through it, rather than just talking about the entire work. Hopefully this will be interesting for you too. So if this is what you're interested in, then keep on watching. So I have my portfolio in front of me. This is my second year project 1. So let's go through it together. So my P1 is called The Dandelion Abattoir, and yeah, that's the title. And so this project is kind of about my journey into veganism. So I guess for people who don't know, I am vegan, and this is kind of like a huge change on both my, well, actually, I think people will know based on my channel content. But yeah, so this was actually a really big change in my life, and I wanted to bring that personal change into some of my projects, and I thought that would make it more interesting since I have a personal connection to it. And yeah, so let's go. So I started looking into these precedents like Animal Machines, which is a book about ethical problems with intensive industrial farming, and also the film Okja. I love this film. For those of you who haven't watched it, please watch this film. It's so good. It's a film about a girl who raised a genetically modified super pig and tries to save him from greedy businessmen, and really makes the audience question their choice of diet ethically. So, okay, I guess this is spoilers, but I essentially broke down the slaughterhouse scene in Okja and looked at the different points where I thought the imagery was really strong and picked them out as like my precedents. So I drew this drawing where I kind of followed Mija, which is the main character of the movie, throughout the slaughterhouse, and drew her route as she walked through the slaughterhouse, which is the blue, and the red is the sources of blood that she sees within the slaughterhouse. And I mashed it up with the imagery I got from the movie and signified them and mashed them together. So it kind of like signifies her fear as she runs through the slaughterhouse trying to find her beloved friend. However, in the eyes of the public and the businesswoman, her friend is nothing but a piece of meat, profit, and product. So this is another book called Porkopolis, where it's like photography of factory farms, slaughterhouses, and packaging stations, and the architecture of torture for the bliss of our taste buds. So the irony is also some of the workers actually live in very inhumane conditions. So you have like artificial insemination barns and like bone rendering facilities, and within this book they talk about it, and these are like the barns that the pig and piglets are staying at. So yeah. So this is me looking into Batai, which is the museum, where he kind of compares the theme of museum and the slaughterhouse, where both structures are actually built on top of sacrifices. So the animal is kind of like entrapped from birth to death, and it's kind of like a process from animal to product. So this is like a hand drawing using pencil that I did to show that kind of theme, and how the animal just has no individuality. It's just, trapped from birth to death. And this is the drawing looking at the process between life to product and exploring this architecture of torture and the spatial language of an infinite hallway throughout, like for this transformation of life to object. They're just repeated objects with no individuality. So that was a collage and hand drawing that I did digitally. It's quite interesting to do that. And then this was kind of me moving into the narrative of abandoned abattoirs, like in a post-meat eating world where farm sites and abattoirs within the countryside are abandoned So these places are actually very psychologically scarred landscapes since so many lives are taken from it. Um, and then at this point I wanted to find a site that where my project was going to be located at. So I came across Isfield, which is in East Sussex, and it's located between the Barcombe Reservoir and Uckfield Town. So the reason I found this place is because I found this abandoned abattoir. It was really interesting. I just found it on Google and I was like, oh, I think that's gonna be my site. So I just picked it, and this is my site. It kind of just became more run down over time, as you can see from the photographs, and this is what it looks like existing. I've actually never been to the site, well, thanks to COVID, but I don't actually know if this exists right now, but apparently during a crit, somebody told me that it does exist. So if anyone is in East Sussex and Isfield, let me know if this building is actually still there. It'll be really cool to know if it's actually there. So this is the interior of the abandoned abattoir, which is quite interesting and has a nice interior even though it's very like run down. So this is where I go into the narrative. So I can read through it quickly to you guys. So in the past, animals were slaughtered for food, and a law passed that humans could no longer slaughter animals. So this group of cows roamed free back to the countryside where a lot of abattoirs were deserted. So they came across an abandoned abattoir in Isfield with dandelion fields and settled. It had a garden roof. A scientist came across the site and played with the cows. She decided to build something to take care of these cows while utilizing the dandelions and extracting their proteins. The plan is complete. She gave the cows the dandelion kingdom, which would also benefit humans. So she gave each dandelion a role watering, fertilizing, grinding, extracting to maintain the ecosystem there to give this scarred landscape a new life. The dandelions executed their tasks and the cows played with them, and they lived in the abattoir. Every week, all the dandelions would fly back to the city carrying the proteins like dandelion seeds blowing out. So that was kind of my narrative. It was almost like giving a new life to the abandoned abattoir. And the dandelions, obviously I came up with the idea that the abattoir was surrounded by dandelion fields, but I thought it would just be like a really nice gesture to kind of utilize the plants around and give the cows and the people and the abattoir a new life. It's almost like a fantasy where people could coexist with these animals. So that was the narrative. And I looked into exploring the process of converting plants into proteins and the narrative of bringing the proteins back into the city using these blimps, which I called the dandelions. So these are some just process and program collage where I did this. This one was done by hand. I actually drew them and cut out the photos. This one was done digitally on Photoshop. This is a short animation, which is clearly not playing. Maybe I'll put a video here, but it was just a short animation that I didn't really think did anything. But yeah. And then now we move on to the process sketches. So this was like the first iteration that I did for this dandelion abattoir. And mostly I focused on the plant to protein conversion process, like heat drying, grinding, cooling, ultrasound treatment, centrifuge, and chemical addition. So I tried to say that this was kind of where the site was and try to incorporate that. So that was the sketch. And then this was the first process drawing that I did. I put the films there, kind of like just try to put the dandelions around. This is A2 hand drawing, but the scale of the cows were really wrong in this drawing, and the perspective was also kind of wrong. So keep in mind that this was kind of like my first attempt at drawing something that was something that I liked, and with a pencil. So this was kind of like my first attempt. So yeah, don't judge. Yeah. And then after that, I remember between this slide and this slide, there was a crit. And then afterwards, I looked into comparing the site before the narrative and after the narrative in order to build like a relationship between the site. So I think one of the feedbacks I got was that I didn't have enough relationship between the actual site and the proposed architecture. So I needed to focus more on that. And then I guess the structure itself can be seen as like a shell and a corpse of a once scarred landscape. So that was kind of the idea behind it. So this was before obviously lots of blood cows being killed. And then this was the proposed post narrative. Yeah. And then here are some references like the Blur building, creating an atmosphere by spraying water, and also Steinman Stallahog's digital images with a post-apocalyptic retrofuturistic setting, and machinery discarded in landscapes. And then this was a really good reference actually. It's Anish Kapoor, which is like a huge red block of wax that gains its shape by passing through series of door door frames while leaving its remnants behind. So it's a very monolithic structure. And I added this as my reference because I like the feeling that it builds a subtle and almost sacrificial relationship with its surroundings. I wanted to bring that kind of atmosphere to my project. So this is a page just, I guess, as research. So it's processed meat products. So the image of processed meat is usually the burger patty, the sausage, or the ham. And I feel like the intention is to distort our view of animal bodies as much as possible. So plant-based patties and sausages are produced nowadays with the ability to bleed, meaning that only the image and the symbol of meat is really needed to satisfy humans and taste buds. So these are like the processed meat forms. And this one, if you didn't know, is actually a bleedable plant-based patty made from beetroots. So that's pretty cool. I just thought that, showing that the idea behind kind of like the forms of these meat is really important rather than, that's kind of the idea. And then this was more research into animal anatomy, where cows have intestines. This was actually really early research, but I put it in here because I thought it was so relevant. Because it's kind of linked to conveyor belts in animal factories and slaughterhouses. And then the next process sketch, I kind of looked at botanical drawings on the life process of dandelions, relating that to the space created in the barn with openings and movements. And then I kind of took a sausage shape with the processed meats because I think at this point I was kind of struggling with the form of the architecture a lot, and I just went for the most straightforward route, took the sausage shape and respective shapes and represented them in this form of like processed meats. And I was still focusing again on the process of the conversion between plants and proteins. So this was the next process drawing I did. As you can tell, the cow scale has decreased, but I think it's still wrong, which is a recurring theme in this project. But yeah, so I focus again on a lot of the process and try to divide the spaces up. But one of the problems with, and here are some of the different spaces, like more in depth of what each part in the drawing is. But I think one of the problem was that I think the spaces are still very divided, like it's not very cohesive. So that was what I was gonna work on further on in this project. But so that was my process drawing. It's still A2, still by pencil. And yeah, let's move on. So this was the section drawing. So this was cut from the side, and I took a reference from Buster Keaton, which is the house falling stunt. So it's almost like the walls could maybe come down and the dandelions could fly out and, create a dramatic effect. But yeah, that was what I was thinking. And maybe the cows could go in, but this was my idea at the time, which didn't end up going in the final thing. So this was another reference, which is Peter Salter, the Osaka Folly. So the folly was almost held by a lot of timber lattice, which suspended the structures. So it's almost like I wanted to do that for the abattoir, the dandelion abattoir itself. So it's almost like being suspended because I guess no one could really enter the site, so it'd be really interesting to suspend them. And then this is a growing roof by Fujimori, and it's almost like the abattoir could have dandelions growing on top of them, so it's like constantly extracting the proteins. So this is again more process sketches, creating a more intimate relationship with the shell using a timber lattice holding the structure whilst testing dandelions growing on the outer skin of the structure. So top right is just a concept drawing, and then critiquing kind of like our current life. So here's just more process drawings in pencil, looking at how the timber lattice would work alongside with the growing roof and the abattoir. And then this one is more process drawings, but this time it's like the top view. So this is an exploded thing. So the house is like exploded like this. So you can look at it from the bird's eye view. And the cows are kind of in the back, taking a more active role, maybe like grinding the dandelions and stuff. So yeah, and this is just a process collage, looking at how it would fit back into the images. I don't really like this collage, but I guess it's alright. And then here is just some process final sketches experimenting with the interiors of the structure in relationship with the cows outside the barn. So here are the sketches before my final drawing, which you will see later. But I just want to say that this project actually took around only 3 months' time. So actually just flew by really quickly. It doesn't look like a lot of work, but at the time I think I struggled really hard in the middle. Anyways, I'm not going to blabber on now. Let's go to the final drawings. So this is the plan of the dandelion abattoir. So again, it's an exploded view. So you have the different walls here. And this is where they keep all the chemicals, which would be fed into the abattoir in the middle. So obviously this is the cut line in the middle where all the things are being held. And that's the exterior skin where all the dandelions are growing on top of the abattoir. And these are kind of where the waste materials would go. And the cows are taking obviously a more active role in converting the plants into protein, and that's the general sense. And that's the dandelion fields outside of it, obviously. And this is the section view of the dandelion abattoir. So these are the cows here and outside, and taking a more active role where the cows are kind of, again, taking the waste products of the conversion process. And this is the chimney where all the dandelion blimps would fly out back into the city, and this is a chimney where the smoke would come out. And yeah, this is the skin of dandelions and the interior part. So I wanted to show you guys a little something, which is the original pieces of work, which is in this portfolio. So obviously you saw the stuff on the digital portfolio, but I thought it would be nice to show you the actual pieces of work because I have them here with me now, and it's always more, not impressive, more cooler to see them in person, I guess. So let me open this. So here's some of my A3 work that I put in this tracing pad thing. So this is the collage that I did, that I showed in the beginning. So yeah, it is hand, so I drew it on with a fine liner. And this is the A3 drawing. Oh my god, this is so nostalgic in a way. Like, I remember drawing this and I was like, wow, I can draw like that. But it was pretty cool to see this now. It's A3. Let's move on to the A2s. Got it out. So here are some of the, can you see this? This is the development with the lattice thing. Here's another lattice drawing. This is all A3, if you can tell on the side. This is another one. Oh, here we go. This is the first section drawing. This is A2. First section drawing that I attempted. And then this is the section. I don't know why I drew them so big. This is the other one. This is the development one. The sausage shape. So if you remember in the digital portfolio, they all had color. So I colored them afterwards in my iPad. Oh, final drawings. So this is the plan. As you can tell, it's unfinished because I photoshopped it afterwards when I scanned it into my computer. So that's the good thing with the digital portfolio, is you can always just copy stuff. Like you see this part of the field here, I just copied it over here. So I really like this. I actually really like this plan drawing. Maybe I'll cringe in a few years, but this is the section, the final section drawing. It's not as impressive on camera, I guess. But yeah, that's the section drawing. So obviously when you scan it and we put it in the computer, you can turn up the contrast and like levels in Photoshop. So yeah, so those are all the drawings, and I hope this was interesting for you to look at. So yeah, that was the rest. That's the P1 over. And yeah, back to what I was saying before, I wanted to say that I struggled a lot with kind of in the middle when I was really stuck with the idea of like, oh, what's the form gonna look like? What is it gonna look like? Yeah, I think that's just the thing with architecture projects. You're gonna have times when you struggle a lot, but I think it's just a lot about trusting the process and also like reaching out for help. Your tutors are there for a reason, and I was really grateful that my tutors were there to help me through when I was kind of struggling with this project. So yeah, and I just wanted to like, I guess, talk to my year 2 self and like thank her, I guess, for bringing in personal things to the table and relating it back to architecture, especially within veganism. I think it's not even about promoting veganism, but more about like connecting to myself on a deeper level through these projects. And I really enjoyed doing these projects, and it's almost fantastical, I guess, in a way, because I've never done a project like this, obviously, in the past. So yeah. So that was my year 2 project, the Dandelion Abattoir. I hope you enjoyed the process and looking through my portfolio with me. And if you have any questions or anything to say, leave them down in the comments down below. Again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!